And if you're just joining us on this broadcast, we're getting you the continuous coverage of what is unfolding at this moment at the Rafah border crossing and also at the West Bank. These are images, live images that are being beamed out of what is unfolding at this moment. Remember, the Israeli hostages, the Israeli captives who have been in the custody of Hamas, they've been handed over to the Red Cross. And at this moment, the Red Cross has confirmed that in total, 24 hostages who were in the custody of Hamas have been released. This includes 13 Israelis, and then there are reports that 10 Thai nationals have been released, and there is one Filipino national who has also been released. In total, this makes up to a total of 24 captives who were in the custody of Hamas who have now been set free. Simultaneously, we're getting reports that in West Bank, because Israel has in its prisons thousands of Palestinians who've been languishing there. Many of them are said to be minors. Almost 39 of them are said to walk free today. At this moment, we are awaiting details on what exactly is the fate and what is the status that they will be set free. But remember, the humanitarian pause, which has been called a ceasefire, although in a sense this is nothing more than a humanitarian pause for a period of 4 days, it has managed to hold through since this morning, 7 a.m. local time in the Gaza Strip. And these are live images that we are getting you of the very first batch of hostages who've now been released by Hamas from their custody. They'll be taken into Egypt via the Rafah border crossing, and from there they'll be airlifted and then taken into Israel. On the other hand, there are Palestinian prisoners. A majority of them are young children, less than the age of 18, and there are Palestinian women who've been languishing in Israeli prisons. They too will be set free from one of these prison facilities that Israel has. They'll be allowed to walk into the West Bank. Now, this is going to be a crucial part of this process of a deal that was agreed upon after an enormous effort was put into the negotiations that were led by the state of Qatar. The United States was a part of these negotiations, Egypt was a part of these negotiations, and Israel eventually, after having for several weeks not willing to accept any kind of a deal, has now accepted this deal. But this is a deal that is meant only for the next 4 days. This is the first of the 4 days, so it is effectively for another 3 more days. And in this interim, a total of 50 Israeli hostages will be released by Hamas. 13 have already been set free, and a total of 150 Palestinian prisoners languishing in Israeli prisons, sometimes for offenses like young children throwing stones on a Israeli tank, and they've been languishing in Israeli prisons for these kind of offenses. They too will be allowed to walk free. This is what the broad contours of the deal are, but a lot can go wrong, and it is a very tenuous and a delicate moment at this point of time. And if you're just joining us, what can be verified and what has been stated at this point of time is that 13 Israeli captives, 10 Thai nationals and 1 Filipino national. These are the people who've been released. This is the first batch of hostages. In total, 24 hostages have been released. This makes up to almost 10% of all hostages in Hamas's custody are said to have been allowed to walk free. Now, according to information that has come in, the 10 Thai nationals and the 1 Filipino national, these are said to be agricultural workers, not related with any politics or violence in the region. They were there in the state of Israel to earn their bread and butter, and they got caught in the incursion by Hamas, when it attacked on the 7th of October. They were taken captive and they have been released. But these individuals are not a part of the deal of 50 hostages that are going to be released by Hamas over the course of the next 4 days. They've been released separately on humanitarian grounds, and this is what is unfolding at this moment. This is the Rafah border crossing, and what you're looking at is a convoy of ambulances. It is not clear what is the condition of these hostages that are being released by Hamas at this point of time, because the Gaza Strip, remember, has been under a crippling blockade and a siege, and has been hammered with a campaign of air bombings that Israel has dropped on the Gaza Strip. So Hamas has had this job of keeping these hostages alive, well-fed, and also to keep them in a medically sound condition. So these are the very first images that we are getting of the Israeli captives. You see women and young children being allowed to walk out from the facility after they'd been handed over to the Red Cross and to the Red Cross officials, and now they're being put into an ambulance. They'll be taken into Egypt via the Rafah border crossing, and from there they'll be airlifted by the Israelis and taken back to the state of Israel. This is the defining moment so far in this breakthrough deal of this war. These are Israeli captives, and you also have about 10 Thai captives and 1 Filipino captive who also been released as a part of the goodwill measure. These individuals had nothing to do with the war, nothing to do with the politics of the region. They were just there. They were there as agricultural laborers, and they were picked up by the Hamas fighters when they made their incursion into the state of Israel on the 7th of October. They're all being loaded onto a bus, and they will be taken into Egypt via the Rafah border crossing. We also saw images of the Israeli women and a few children who are also loaded onto this bus. And these are live images that are being beamed out from the Rafah border crossing. This is the first part of the deal that is being completed, that is being executed. And it is an extremely difficult moment at this point of time, because remember, the negotiations for a deal such as this had gone on for several weeks. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly, according to the Israeli media, according to reports that have appeared in places such as Haaretz, had rejected this very deal a week and a fortnight ago. He had not sought to negotiate with Hamas, but now he's appeared to have conceded to the pressure and crumbled under the pressure of the families of the hostages, would be demanding that he should make the safety of the hostages, the Israeli hostages in Hamas's custody, a priority. And therefore, what we are witnessing at this moment is a crucial breakthrough in this war, where more than 15,000 Palestinians have been bombed to smithereens in a campaign of 49 long days, where Israel has been carrying out its offensive, both in terms of air raids and also a ground offensive. Over 6,000 Palestinian children are being killed. There is a humanitarian catastrophe that is playing out at this moment, and one hopes with this deal now being executed that there is some amount of relief that is provided to the Palestinian people, and there's also some kind of closure that the Israeli families have been waiting desperately for their family members who have been in the custody of Hamas, and this is something that can be achieved. These are live images from the Rafah border crossing of these ambulances and also the buses where the captives are being put into, and then they will of course be taken via the Rafah border crossing into Egypt, and from there they'll be airlifted into Israel. So at this point of time, as we speak, remember the exchange of the Palestinian prisoners is happening for the Israeli captives who are in the custody of Hamas. Now, before the start of this bout of conflict on the 7th of October, there were an estimated 5,000 Palestinian prisoners languishing in Israeli prisons. There were quite a few children and several women who were part of those prisoners. Now, since this conflict has begun, Israel has gone and arrested 3,000 more Palestinians. So, in total, there are an estimated 8,000 Palestinian prisoners who are languishing in Israeli prisons. And on many occasions, a number of these people who have been arrested happen to be young children and have been taken into prison by the Israelis for offences such as throwing stones at the armoured tanks of the Israelis when they've been out on raids. This is what the situation is like. These are the very first images, the very first bus with the captives who've been released, which is making its way out from the facility, the Red Cross facility, and making its way through the Rafah border crossing, which will be heading over into Egypt. A significant breakthrough, and one only hopes that this brings down the temperature and this can lead to a long-term ceasefire. At this moment, what is being imposed is not a ceasefire in the general terms as it is understood, but this is more in the nature of a humanitarian pause where Israel has agreed to stop the bombings over the course of the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Although in the northern part of Gaza, the pause is only for about 6 hours in a day. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening at this moment and can this now lead to a long-term ceasefire of sorts.